Next presentation, which will be given by Clyncke, if I'm right, and he will let us know about the status of recycling. Jan?
Yeah.
Yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Michael, for the nice introduction. And yes, thank you as well, the previous speaker of Jinko. I think it's a nice transition to PV Cycle. Thank you also for the invite. I was asked to really focus a little bit on recycling and also a bit of what's beyond also recycling. There are so many items which are circulating around the planet, from ESG to energy labeling and many other things in Europe. So it's a bit of broader presentation. So for those who are not familiar with PV Cycle, we are a take-back system which started on a voluntary basis 2007. And as from 2014, we are offering the same thing, but now also a bit pushed by the legislation, because in 2014, the European WEEE directive, so waste electrical and electronic equipment, so or e-waste directive, came into force, including PV panels. Before it was without PV panels, because the WEEE directive already exists since 2005. So that's also why we stepped into many legal entities across Europe, and we are offering since 2014 those services, compliance, but also the take back itself. And in the meantime, we achieved some milestones like managed quality systems and the like. And then immediately I go to the services we are offering. So on the right side of the slide, you see the legal recompliance upstream. So that's the 7 obligations each company which is putting PV panels, but also TV sets, washing machines, and the like, is putting on the territory of each of the 27 European countries has to comply with. So these are the obligations. And obligation number 4, organization of waste management, that's also and one of the obligations PV Cycle is executing. So we have a kind of upstream service, and what we call the waste management is then the downstream service, whereby we really organize the take back, the collection through fixed collection points, direct pickup service, and the like, and then also organize, of course, the recycling. I will not spend too much time on PV Cycle itself and our services, but focusing now on the treatment a little bit and how it all works. Maybe a slide which is needed or not needed in this group. But again, when I saw for the first time a PV panel, and my past before PV Cycle, I worked in the waste industry myself. I saw a PV panel, and for me it was a laminated flat glass, nothing more than this. Because mainly, if you look from a material perspective to a PV panel, you see a lot of glass. It consists of a lot of glass, a bit of aluminium, and then the remaining items are really very small, very limited, especially in tons or in kilograms or even in milligrams or in grams. It becomes very small, the plastics and the metals and semiconductors. So that's an important element. It would have been, I would say, much better if the glass was 78% aluminium and then 10% glass and so on. Would already have been a different mindset. So it's a glass product. It's very important to understand this, to realize this when you talk with recycling and the waste industry. So it's really comparable, sounds a bit weird, to a glass in your car or a glass in your building. So that's what is, from a material perspective, end of life phase, what is a PV panel. And the PV industry as such is doing a great job already today. If you look to the waste hierarchy, and you see that on the right side of your screen, the most preferred option in treating products when they become end of use is, of course, not having this end of use phase, so that you prevent waste. If there is waste, or if there is something you throw away, you first maybe try to reuse it. If this does not work, you start to recycle it. You can do material recycling, product recycling. If this also does not work, you can start to do energy recovery, so incineration, whereby you recover the energy and you heat up hospitals and other infrastructure. And the worst case, let's say, is disposal or in what is also referred to as landfilling. When you look to the current situation, even we have a minimum amount of waste, the PV industry is doing very fine. It's great because we are preventing a lot of waste. We are preventing a lot of cost for the society during many years because you have a long guarantee, product-wise, performance-wise. And yes, reuse of PV panels is a huge potential. I think the last speaker of today will also zoom into that probably a bit. And then recycling, recovery, we are doing very fine on all those points as PV industry. The only challenge is today that, yes, you are installing a lot of PV panels, a lot of PV installations, amazing, gigawatts and terawatts and non-stop, but there is no waste. There is no waste. We all wait here for waste amounts, and that also helps to optimize things. As you saw with the previous speaker, yeah, a recycling line of 12 megawatt, that's, I did a very quick calculation, that's 720 tons. In the recycling, in the waste business, they are treating this amount in one day. They have this kind of capacity. They process it in one day. So, and in some countries, there is only 700 or 500 tons of PV panels waste generated here in Europe. So today, a lot of things are put on the market, a lot of panels are sold, but nothing is coming back. Nothing is coming out of the market. And zooming in on a little bit of the steps of the waste hierarchy, I would say prevention. It's often forgotten by this industry, and I would like to put it a bit more into the picture that also all of you start to promote this, because as industry, you are one of the, I think, only industries or a few industries, but you are one of the front runners, which is doing a lot on preventing waste. You have a product guarantee of 10 years. Most of you put in place a 20 years performance guarantee. The average economical lifetime, even repowering and revamping starts, but you know, an average economical lifetime of a PV system, 10 years easily. Many countries have fit-in tariff systems in place, financial incentives in place. So all things which are really keeping those panels working and generating electricity. More and more, you also see that less and less hazardous substances are used in PV panels. And what is coming up, there is a huge potential in contributing to extended lifetime with a qualitatively and environmentally sound reuse activity, whereby you maybe can also, again, guarantee limited-wise a bit the PV panel or not, but also there is a huge potential. And then is the big question, why this PV industry is not communicating about this, why you are not proud about this. It's an achievement. You are avoiding waste, you are avoiding cost for the society for during many years. So that's something I invite you to share a bit more on social media accounts and buzz it around. What about reuse then? Maybe the second step, prevention, reuse. Well, we did a study in 2020. Mid of the high level recommendations were, okay, it would be good to track a bit of the waste. That could also give us an insight in when it will come back and when it can be potentially be reused, a part of it, and potentially a part needs to be treated as waste. That's one element, but a more important element is, and the main one of the study was also the recommendation on the preparation of PV panels for reuse. So that really, because today this is not existing, or at least it's not existing in a standard, it's not existing in a technical specification, but we need to have some minimal testing requirements on visual inspection, electrical performance, safety test, and the-like, because at the end of the day, this is a product which is generating electricity and not consuming electricity like laptops, TV sets, and the-like. Because there, the reuse, I'm not saying is easier, but the discussion, let's say, is sometimes like, okay, yes, if a laptop misses one dot on its keyboard, well, you replace it and it works again. Yes, that's true, but it's also a product which is not generating electricity. It's really, but here, a PV panel, PV system has really a big importance. It has to be qualitatively, it has to be performing well and the-like. And also, if you planning to reuse PV panels. So that's why you have to have clear quantitative criteria. For example, to say as long as a PV panel is still performing 70% or more, well, then it can be potentially put in the bin for reuse. If it's below 70%, well, let's throw it away. So that's one of the recommendations we have there in the study. Maybe also put in place again a warranty, product warranty of 1 year, 1.5 years, 12 months, whatever. But that would also help a lot if the one purchasing secondhand PV panels, that he has a guarantee that he's buying or purchasing a reliable secondhand product. And then also important element, provide also an identity card of the PV panel. Tell to the people, okay, it maybe was one day brand X PV panel. It was then a panel of 270 watt peak. Today we did some modeling, we did some activity on the panel and so on. Today it's still a 200 watt peak panel, and it has been remanufactured by company Y. And then with a guarantee maybe of 12 months, well, then it's really sell it. That's then an option. But then you also have something which is environmentally sound, safe, and qualitatively. And even because that's happening today, that's also what we saw in the study today. You have a lot of, I could call it illegal activity in the so-called reuse business of PV panels. A lot of these things are shipped to countries where there is no political infrastructure, sometimes no waste management infrastructure. Recycling is not even in the dictionary, and there a lot of PV panels are ending up. So it will be important also to develop locally also treatment capacity in the long run, because otherwise all those PV panels will be somewhere in the middle of nowhere. And then, of course, fourth important recommendation: develop specific guidelines. Okay, this is referring to Europe now in the Waste Framework Directive, but specific guidelines for what is a normal, what is a good reuse center for PV panels. That the people who are working on that PV panel, that they know something about electricity, that they know something about AC and DC and D-like, and that at the end of the day they can deliver really qualitatively and safe secondhand PV panels. And that's also why PV Cycle started within IEC in the technical committee 82, opening the discussion. Okay, we want a standard or a technical specification, at least that there is something on an international basis. This work as such did not start because we were welcomed with the proposal, but we first had to draft a technical report. Today, more than 30 technical experts worldwide are present in that group. We invite you as well through your national standardization committees to join this discussion. The coordinator is funded by PV Cycle, and we expect to deliver the technical report by October 2023. And then this TC82 will decide, okay, what do now we want? Is there really a need for a standard or a technical specification? And we hope they will do this and decide in favor of this. What about then recycling or the treatment of PV panels? Just to highlight a little bit, okay, at one point in time, waste is generated. At one point in time, you have an end of life or an end of use situation of a PV panel. Somebody decides, I throw it away. Okay, it's collected. And at the end of the day, it ends up at the first treatment plants where the activity is about separating the junction box, the aluminium frame, with different kind of technologies, with different kind of techniques. I hear about hot knife technology. Okay, that's a new trend maybe coming from the PV industry, but in the normal existing since more than 100 years recycling and waste business, they also have already many separation and sorting techniques, eddy current technology, water beds technology, infrared, and many more to, at the end of the day, come up with material which comes out of those activities. Can be glass pellets, the plastics, the shredded plastics, maybe the cells a little bit containing the silicon and the silver and the like. And at one point in time, you recover those materials, and they can be recovered through those techniques. They can also be recovered through an other material recovery. That means smelters, for example, or they can even be recovered by energy recovery. That's then when they are sent to waste incinerators. When they are recovered through material recovery, let's say, then you easily can say, okay, aluminium goes back into the recycling of aluminium. Silicon goes in this direction, and so on and so on. All those recovered products can be sent to the final recycling activity. But it can also be that if a part is incinerated, let's say, of the material, also then you have an added value because you recover energy, which is then fueling, let's say, or providing energy to, as I said, hospitals, other infrastructure, can even generate again electricity coming out of those incinerators and the like. So that's all happening today. That's all possible, and there are many options. And we also see today that you have, as I said, a lot of mature existing pre-treatment facilities, companies which are 100, 200 years old. You have a lot of startups coming in. And you also have it in the second, let's say, and we always have a first treatment activity, the second treatment activity, or the final treatment activity. There also, so you see a lot of mature existing recyclers, and you also see a lot of startups. And some of them, yeah, you see some of them focusing on recovering the silicon. Great, they have they are just starting up, and they acquired 7 million euro. You have others that just also recent news, they just got 2.5 million. You have some others, all of them great. But if you have to fight against the big guys, this is an example of an annual report of 2022 from one of the big waste treatment plants. These guys are talking in billions. So it will be very challenging. And I see a lot of promising startups, many of them, super nice things. But it will be really challenging. Collecting 7 million, collecting 2 million, well, that's nice. That's nice, very nice. But guys, you need much more money to step in the big game of waste treatment, waste recycling, being able to treat 100,000 tons capacity per year. Then you really need a lot of money. So that will be, for me, the big challenge in the upcoming years, if the young startups will be able to survive against the big guys. Treatment today, because always people think that it's terrible and whatever. No, I think on a laboratory and small scale treatment basis, and there are a lot of proofs already, we achieve average all over all the technologies. We achieve an average technical recycling rate of 95%, so that's super great. But if you look to the current small industrial scale, you also saw it with the previous speaker, 12 megawatt is barely 760 tons. That's peanuts, that's nothing. But small industrial scale as we have today, yeah, we achieve an average recycling rate of 70% based upon weight. Well, that's great, guys. That's great, because if you look to the right corner at the bottom and you look to the recycling yields, which other products which are under producer responsibility in Europe achieve, and these are results, I think, 2018. Then you see with the 70%, we are beating a lot of them. A lot of products which are already since many years under extended producer responsibility, like packaging, it's already since 1999, the batteries since 2006, electronic waste since 2005, and the cars, okay, they achieve 88%, but a lot of things in a car are metals. So the 70%, what we achieve, the average one, is really good. The only thing what we're missing is volume. We need waste. It does not sound nice. That's why I'm also saying promote a little bit more that this industry is contributing a lot to prevention, but we need volume. And if you have volume of waste, okay, then you can optimize much more all your recycling and treatment capacities. And then also players will be willing to invest more into it and so on. But today, with the very small amounts we have, this is still too early to take the risk. This is a little bit what we as PV Cycle since 15 years are looking for, that one day in time we can say regarding extended producer responsibility and compliance with legislation, which is imposing this, that we can offer, let's say, this kind of balance, that we say, okay, yes, you have some cost elements, and people often forget this because I read a lot of articles about people who are claiming, yes, silicon is this price, silver is this price when it recovered, and so on. But you first have to collect the panels. You have to ship them. You have to treat them. First treatment, final treatment. You have whatever costs. You have administration costs, especially when you are under extended producer responsibility, like here in Europe. You have reporting costs and so on. And you have your overhead costs. Well, if then your material, the value of your material can cover all that, well, that would be the perfect balance. Then we are at break even. But today, unfortunately, it's going in the right direction. We have more cost than value. And again, do not forget composition of a PV panel. 78% is glass. And then a minimum amount is a little bit of some metals. And the metal prices are also going up and down, something I never have witnessed in my life before. But the last 10 years, it's really a bit insane what's happening on this thing. Last slide almost. Circular economy recycling, a bit the broader picture. because a lot of people have maybe heard already that in Europe, for example, a lot of things are coming up very soon. You will have very soon mandatory eco designs and energy labeling requirements for PV panels and inverters. The announcement of the Commission is expected probably third quarter of this year. And then you will also have a voluntary invitation, that's voluntary basis, to have green public procurement and eco-labeling in place. These are, you have maybe recently heard in Europe, that's only 2 weeks old, that the European Commission came up with the European Critical Raw Materials Act, whereby one of the commissioners even referred literally to solar panels. So also there, Europe is realizing that maybe there are some metals in PV panels which we have to be ensure that we have it on our own. And you also already saw it also in the previous speakers, the ESG requirements coming up. So a lot of things are coming together. It's really a great momentum, let's say, but it's all coming together. So that's why I'm also would say it happens today, circular economy and the whole topic about recycling of PV panels. And thank you for your attention.
Thanks, Jan. Great overview. Yeah, important topic. Interesting statement always is we need waste, while on the one hand we try to avoid, and on the other hand we're still not having enough for the big recycling industry. Quick question. So I think you're talking about mostly about Europe. So how do we see, and I think that I mentioned that probably the biggest amount of modules that are coming or reaching end of their economic life, that's happening here, simply because it started first. But now that we've seen also so much technical development recently, we will see also more repowering. So that means also those who got in later also will start replacing the modules earlier and not just wait until the end of the life. So what are you seeing on a global level regarding recycling?
I see a lot of interesting developments. If you take a tour around the planet, starting a bit at the bottom, I would say Australia. Okay, they are discussing the item already now since I think 4 or 5 years. I hope that the current government will finally really say, okay, now we go for it, and that also the industry, that's an important element, that also the industry really says, okay, we go for it. This is not a cost element. It sounds maybe like a cost element, but it really gives you a lot of benefits in the long run, politically and different wise as well. So Australia is going in the right direction. On the Asian territory, Japan has put in place the deposit fund also for the big projects. So that's also in good direction. China, I expect something there very soon to come. I see positive developments, especially now with the new program in place. India is also discussing the item. We are also helping on putting in on a study there. And I'm quite certain that this can work very soon in India, but it's an industry also who must jump into the swimming pool, and it's really not having fear, and especially in countries where a lot of PV is put on the market, you can do this quite cheap to put a producer responsibility organization and EPR in place. So that's a bit for this side of the planet. I see also positive things in, for example, South Africa, where an EPR law is in place for PV panels, even batteries as well. It's all together with windmills even. There also it just kicks off. South America, positive developments in Chile on the perspective of PV panels. And then North America is mainly USA. I think that it's a little bit different. The federal government is not taking much action, but there you will have the risk that many states of the United States will popping up with legislation. There are many draft bills pending. There is already Washington State, which has introduced an EPR law for PV, which starts in 2025. So there also I now see that the PV Industry Association has taken action that they also start to realize that the risk that you will have maybe 52 EPR laws about PV panels. So they are working now on hopefully coming up with an harmonized US take-back program. So I see a lot of positive developments, but I think it's also key that the industry also, and especially a lot of companies have experience with PV cycle, that also their representatives speak and open the discussion within their headquarters to really look into the other countries as well, because yeah, there is such an amount of gigawatts and terawatts almost installed that yeah, really this industry has to take key decisions. Otherwise, we might have some less breaking news, positive breaking news on CNN. So that's really what we as industry need to avoid.
Yeah, fully agree. So thanks a lot, Jan. So yeah, to the audience, so whoever has questions, please get in touch with Jan. There's probably no one who has more experience with PV recycling than him. Thanks a lot, Jan, and take care.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you.
Enjoy your holidays.